Okay, good morning. Today's daf is daf Zion in Bava Metzia. I missed you all last week. I'm glad to be back and looking forward to continuing our learning together. We're gonna pick up at the top of Zion Amud Aleph. I'm gonna share my screen and we will get started. Um, Yesterday we quoted from a Mishnah in Bechoros, Daf Teremet Aleph, which notes that animals of questionable status must be tithed. And we understood questionable status as meaning that it was an animal that was redeemed, a sheep, a lamb that was used to redeem a firstborn or a possibly firstborn donkey, because a chamor, a donkey, is the only animal that is not kosher for which we need to take tithes. For which we need to bring, where the firstborn of the animal has some holiness. And what we do in order to deal with that is we substitute a holy animal in its place. And so here, this holy animal, and then we give that animal to the Kohanim. But here, we don't have to do that because it's questionable. And so as a result, the Jew who owns that animal is allowed to keep it. But when they have to keep it, it means that it's also going to be subject to Maser Behema. Maser Behema is where every 10th new animal that somebody has, that not including things that they bought or were gifted, but if they had it as a result of inheritance or as a result of it being born, then that's considered something that you would need to tithe. And so every 10th animal is going to be brought as an offering in the Beit HaMikdash and eaten by the owner in Yerushalayim. So we say that when it comes to this animal of questionable status, it's going to need to be tithed. So now Rav Acha is going to pick up as we start at the third to last, at the Amar Lay on the third line of Zion Amud Aleph. So we say Amar Lay Rav Acha midifti leRavina my sfekos. When we said in animals of questionable status, what kind of question were we referring? Meaning, what was the uncertainty? Because Elaim is Suffolk Bechoros. Maybe you might have thought that it was a firstborn animal itself, and we were uncertain about for example, a sheep or a goat, whether it was a firstborn animal. And what it was telling us is that you get to keep the animal, but you still have to tithe it when it comes to Meiser Behema. Well, that doesn't work because Yiyeh Kodesh Amar Rachmana. The Torah in Vayikra Parak Zion Pasuk Lamed Bet says Yiyeh Kodesh, implying that it will be holy, but it is not holy now. And this animal that isn't possibly a firstborn animal may be holy. And so as a result, that would violate the concept of the animal only becoming holy as a result of what we're saying. V'lo shekvar kadosh, because it implies that it's not already holy. Ella fake pigeon peter rachamor. It must be that the uncertainty is about a donkey, and we're not sure whether the donkey is a firstborn animal, and we're dealing with it by redeeming it. And so we redeem it on a lamb. That lamb, is the redemption, but it doesn't have the holiness of a bechor. And so as a result, you're allowed to, that would be an animal that isn't yet holy and could therefore be tithed. And you could do Meiser Behema on it. Ukid Rav Nachman, and this is all like Rav Nachman, because what does Rav Nachman say? The Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, Yisrael sheyesh lo asara sfeik pitre chamor b'tok beito. If somebody has 10 animals that were substitutions for a donkey firstborn possible, for possible donkey firstborns, where we're not sure whether it's a firstborn, and you have them all in your possession. So then you can then you set it. I mean, if you have those 10 questionable donkeys, you set aside for them 10 lambs in order to redeem them. And you tie them, because even though ordinarily you should have to give all of those 10 animals, 10 lambs to the Kohen, you get to keep them. But as part of getting to keep them, you have to tie them. You have to do Meiser Behema because they're considered fully yours. So all of this was brought because we asked about the status of a bath or bathhouse. So you will see that there's uncertainty about the nature of the item that we're talking about. We'll call it a bathhouse for simplicity. So when people were arguing about a bathhouse, and one of the people who were arguing about it made it hektish. And the question is, when they made it hektish, was it a successful effort at consecrating it? And the reason and the argument would be that if, in fact, we treat something that belongs to you as yours, even though you haven't yet gone to court to make it yours, so then we would say that you would have the ability to consecrate it. On the other hand, if we say that what you don't have yet in your possession is not yours, so then you wouldn't be able to consecrate it. So how are we going to prove it? So Tashma, come in here. Here's a lesson. To bar Avin Hava Uvda Be Rav Chisda, that a specific circumstance came in front of Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda Be Rav Huna, and Rav Chisda brought it to Rav Huna, and ufshata mehad Amar Rav Nachman, and he based it on the ruling of Rav Nachman. Kol mamon she'ein yachol lahotzio b'dayanin hikdishu einu kadosh. That it depends on whether you have the ability to win the property. If you have the ability to win the property, we'll treat the property as yours, and if not, then it's not yours. Well, 1 second. So so what's the implication? The implication is that if you could take away the property with by going to court with judges, so then you would hekdisho hek kadosh, then it would be holy. So the answer to the question about this particular case would be determined based on the facts of the case. Does the person who said this bathhouse is holy have the ability to consecrate it or not? So lo abke. 1 second. You're saying that he could consecrate it even though he did not yet take it away. Rabbi Yochanan. But what about the following statement of Rabbi Yochanan, which we saw numerous times in Bava Kama? So this is a nice segue from Bava Kama to Bava Metzia. Gaza velonis yaishu habalim shnehem eini yecholin lahakdisho. That when you have a thief and he steals something, neither the thief nor the owner have the ability to consecrate it as long as the owner has not yet given up hope of recovering it. The thief can't do it because he doesn't own it, and the owner can't do it because it's not in his possession, it's not in his domain, and so as a result, neither of them can do it. So how can you say that Rabbi Chia ruled based on Rav Chisda, based on Rav Nachman, that it depends on who would win the case? It seems like even if and of course the owner who has not yet given up hope of recovering his item would win the case against a thief. So how come in the thief case you can't consecrate it, and here in this case we're saying you can consecrate it if you would win the court case? So the Gemara answers me. 1 second. Do you think that we're talking about a bath that is movable? That meaning it's not attached to the ground? But we're talking about a bath, some kind of bath house that is attached to the ground. And in that situation, whenever you have real property, so then real property, nobody ever gives up hope, and nobody ever says that it's not going to, it never leaves the possession of the original owner, because the original owner knows exactly where it is. And so as the result, that's why we're going to say that in this situation, he's allowed to make it hektish, because it never really left his possession, because he always owned it, because real property doesn't leave the possession, it doesn't even leave the domain of the original owner. So that is our discussion, and we've proven the case, and we now return to a variation on our Mishnah's case of two people claiming a garment.
But
So
weren't you asking about the causing the opposite scenario? If a person did not have his in possession, he could make it hektish, even if he didn't have it yet?
No, that we say specifically that he cannot do that. That's exactly so. When we're dealing with metaltalin, so then we have Rav Nachman's rule, and Rav Nachman's rule is that when you have a thief and the original owner, neither of them can make it hektish if the original owner didn't give up hope, because the thief doesn't own it and the original owner doesn't have it in his possession. And so that is going to always be the rule with metaltalin. And then when it comes to real property, however, in that situation, we say that real property never actually leaves the domain of the original owner. And so as a result, when it comes to real property, even if somebody else is there, we're going to say that it belongs to the original owner. And so even if there's a debate about it, and the answer would be determined by, if you go to court, who would win the case. And if the person who makes something holy would have won the case, well, then it was always in their possession. So we originally thought, when we said the statement of Rav Nachman, that kol mamon she'ein yakol lahotzio b'dayanin hekdisho einu kadosh, but ha yakol lahotzio b'dayanin hekdisho kadosh, that when we said that if you could extract it through a court case, then when you consecrate it, it is holy. We have explained that that is only talking about real property. And so when you have real property, it's because it never left your possession. And so as a result, those
so
two
that means
statements
a
are
person
consistent.
could. If a person could in the future obtain it, then it would be within his right to make it hektish, right?
Correct.
So
But only when it
suppose the
comes.
person then says, listen, I like that property over there. I have $1 million. I could buy the property. And
No, no,
then
no, 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 no. No, it's not. Remember that the reason that the person could go to court and get it is because he already owned it. It's not that he could potentially purchase it. It's that he could go to court and win the court case to prove that he already owned it. And so as a result, because real property is real and is you can point to it all at all times and know exactly where it's located. As a result, that we are going to treat it as always being in the possession of the true owner. And so if somebody is the true owner and could prove it, it's as if it never left his possession. And so therefore, if he made it hektish, it would be a valid hektish. But just the theoretical ability to buy it, that would be different. And we would not say that you could actually make it hektish based on that future possibility. It's because we're saying that even now, when that he officially doesn't look like he's in possession because somebody else is there, because he has the ability to win the court case, we're going to say it's as if he's there. It's only true for real property. And so now we've made consistent the two statements, one by Rav Nachman and one by Rav Yochanan. Rav Nachman says that if you can win it, you can make it hektish, and we say that that's only talking about real property. And Rav Yochanan says that if somebody stole it and it's something, and then neither the owner nor the thief can make it can dedicate it to the Beit HaMikdash, and the reason is because he's talking about movable property. And so as a result, we've now essentially squared the circle and made both Rav Nachman and Rav Yochanan to be completely consistent. Okay, so now we get to Rav Tachlifa, who's going to tell us a story about a related case to our case in our Mishnah, our original opening Mishnah, of two people grabbing a garment. So Tane Rav Tachlifa, Bar Ma'arava, Kamei de Rabbi Abahu. So Rav Tachlifa from Israel came and taught the following in front of Rabbi Abahu. Shnayim adukim betalis. If you got two people holding a garment, zenote ad makom sheyado magas, zenote ad makom sheyado magas. Each of them get to keep whatever they're holding in their hands. V'hashar cholkim b'shaveh, and what's left gets divided equally. So machli le Rabbi Abahu ubishvua, and Rabbi Abahu made a movement making clear that he was trying to say that ubishvua, that you of course have to swear. Of course, we're trying to, this is the point is that this needs to be consistent with our Mishnah. And in our Mishnah, each one is going to swear that they own no less than half. But 1 second, our Mishnah said nothing about getting what is in your hands. Below Katani Zen Notel Admak, it only said you split it. Below Katani Zen Notel Admak Moshiado Magas, and neither of the, it didn't say anything about everybody getting what their hands are holding. So what case is our Mishnah talking about? Meaning, how are our Mishnah and this Brisa consistent with one another? So we're talking about where you're holding it by the fringes at the edge. And so as a result, in that case, for all intents and purposes, you're not holding anything, and therefore we're going to split the entire garment. Okay, so Amar Rav Masharshia. So now Rav Masharshia is going to learn a lesson about this for the laws of Kinyan Chalifin. So let's see. Shmamina, we learn from this brisa that everything that's in your hand, it's as if you already own it. High Sudra, when it comes to doing a Kinyan Sudar, a Kinyan with respect to Chalifin, where you take a kerchief, and that kerchief allows a transaction. When the other person picks up the kerchief, the transaction becomes effective. Kaven de toughest base shalosh al shalosh. Once the person, in this case, let's say the seller, grabs the 3x3, and we're talking about 3 finger breadths, which is the minimum size of a usable garment, and that therefore has the possibility of becoming tamei. But that 3x3 amount, karin and bay v'nasan l'reyehu, then we consider it as if it has been given to his friend. And the nasan l'reyehu is from Megillas Rus, Perek Daled Pasuk Zayin, and that is part of where we learn the concept of Kinyan Chalipin. And so as a result, when he gave the shoe to his friend, so then the acquisition took place. Similarly here, he gives a piece of cloth to his friend, the acquisition takes place. The command to pasuk dummy. We basically view it as if that little piece has been cut off, the kani, and a transaction has been made. Okay, so umay shna midirav chista. So now in second, we have another situation where somebody is holding something, and we don't treat it as if they own the item. Because listen to the teaching of Rav Chisda, the Amar Rav Chisda, get biyada u'meshika biyado. If you have a get, a divorce, a Jewish divorce document in the hand of the wife, and that has been given to the wife by the husband, and he's holding a string that connects it to that particular piece of paper. Im yachol and not go lavio etzlo, if the string is strong enough that he could just pull it, the document back towards him. So einam megoreshes. So then she's not going to be divorced. V'im lav, but if a string is not that strong, so then megoreshes, then she is divorced. It's because, and so now the question is, it seems like it's not enough for it to be all in her hand. Why not? Based on what we just said, she should take ownership of what she can hold. And it doesn't matter that somebody else is holding the rest. Meaning it doesn't matter in the case with the kerchief that the kerchief is not held only by the seller. It could still be held by the purchaser, but as long as the seller is holding a 3 finger by 3 finger amount, so then that's sufficient for the acquisition to take effect. So hasam krisus be'inan. No, because why is divorce different? Because there you need actual termination. You need a termination of the relationship. And as long as that string exists, the leka, there is no such termination. But haka nasina binan. But when it comes to the kinyan sudar, the kinyan of chalifin, all you need is giving, because it says in the pasuk v'nasam l'rayeyu v'ha'ika, and that there is. And so as a result, we're doing fine. And so as a result, these two statements are not inconsistent. Okay, another ruling related to our Mishnah. Amar Rava, im haisa talas muzu habes cholkin. If there's gold in the garment, you still divide it. Well, pshita, of course you divide it. What else would you think? Lo, tzricha dekoy dahava be mitzei. That it's where the gold is in the middle. So maybe that's why you might think it's different. Well, hanami pshita. Again, if the gold's in the middle and you're dividing it along the middle, so of course the gold is going to be split. Lo, trika de mikarev legabi dechad. No, what we're talking about is the following: even though the two people are holding the garment, what's in the between them, the piece that they're not holding, one of them is closer to the gold. So I might have thought Ma'udetema. I might have thought to Amarle, the person who's closer to the gold, could say Paluk Haki, let's divide it across the middle. And so as a result, I get to keep all of the gold because the gold is closer to me. Kamash Milan, Damarle, the other person could say, no, my causes to Falagta Haki. Why are you trying to divide it that way? Paluk Haki, we could divide it a different way that would be more advantageous to me. And so as a result, what Rava is teaching is that even when the gold isn't in the direct middle, we are going, as long as it's not being held by either party, we're going to split that gold piece equally. Okay, so that's now we're going to expand again on our Mishnah. So Tana Rabbanan Shnayim Adukim Bishtar, if we've got two people holding on to a document, namely, we're talking presumably about a loan document that indicates somebody owes somebody money. And specifically, it's the two people who are parties to the document that are holding it. So obviously, Malva Omer Shalihu Vinafo Mimeni Umatsasiv. The person who lent the money is saying, listen, it belongs to me. I dropped it and I found it. And so I picked it up and it's mine. No, it was yours, but I paid it back. And so it belongs to me. And I want to rip it up and destroy it. So we're going to review and get witnesses to confirm the document. Divrei Rebbe. At the moment, we're going to assume that what Rebbe is saying is that the debtor pays the document in full. But the Gemara is going to ask about it. So we're going to see that more. But at the moment, we'll assume that that you certify the document and presumably the creditor gets paid in full. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, Yachloku, you divide it equally. And we'll see what Yachloku means in this context also. What does it mean to divide it? So Nafaliyad Dayan, if it fell into the hands of a judge, Lo Yotzi Olamit, it never gets taken away. So that's essentially the Tanakama, an unnamed source. So that'll be the rabbis. And Rabbi Yossi Omer Harehu B'chezkaso. Rabbi Yossi says no, it retains its status, meaning it's a valid document. So it should get collected, meaning even if it's in the hands of a judge. So Amar Mar Yiskayim Ashtar B'chosmav. So 1 second, Rebbe said that we certify the document. The Gabi Le Malva Kule does that mean that in fact the lender collects the entire amount. What about our Mishnah, which says that when two people are holding something, they split it? So why don't you do the splitting in this case too? So Amar Rav Nachman. So Rava says in the name of Rav Nachman as the answer. So V'mikuyam divrei hakol yaklu. Now we're going to change the situation. Really, everybody agrees that when you have an already certified document, that everybody agrees that you divide it. Where do they disagree? When it is not already certified. Rebbe Savar Moda Bishtar Shiksavo Tzarech Lekaimo. That even though the borrower in this case admits that it was a valid document, he wrote the IOU to the other party, but nonetheless, it needs to be certified. The imekayim lay public. And then if it gets certified, we're going to divide it 50-50, because remember, the two people are holding the document and argue about the situation of what's happening. And we have no evidence and no witnesses that prove either case. The low Makayim lay low public. But if in fact it turns out that the creditor, that the lender has no ability to certify the documents and confirm the witnesses on it, since the only person who has confirmed it is the debtor himself, and the debtor himself is saying that he no longer owns it, we're not going to punish the debtor essentially by making that admission. And so as a result, the creditor in that case will receive nothing. So my timer, what's the reason? Well, I explained it, because chaspa ba'almahu, it's just a piece of pottery. Usually these contracts were written on pieces of pottery because that was what they had to write on. And so man mashvile lahai shtara, who is it, the one that's certified this document? Lova, it was the borrower. V'haka amar de paria, and he himself is the one who says that it's been paid off. So as a result, we're not going to allow the lender to collect without the certification. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says no. Moda b'shtar shiksavo ain't tzarech l'kaimo. Listen, once the guy admits that it's a valid document, even though he's now saying that it was paid, he does not. The document itself does not need to be certified. And so even though there's no ability to certify the document, we're still going to say that they divide it. So that's the first case in this brisa. The first case in the brisa, and in the end, if we go back to Zion of an Aleph, 1 second, where's the Rashi? I'm sorry, never mind. I got myself confused. And so we end up so we have essentially the machlokas is as follows. Rebbe says that you need to that everybody agrees that if in fact the document is already certified, you just go ahead and split it. But if in fact it's not certified, Rebbe says it needs to be certified, and then you split it. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, it does not need to be certified. You simply split it. So that's the machlokas in the first part of this brisa. Now we turn to the second part of the brisa. Nafal yad dayan lo yotzi olamit. If it falls into the hands of a judge, you don't return the document. Now the Gemara is going to ask us. I'm sorry. Now we're turning to Zion and Bet. So, Maishna Liyad Dayan, why is, as we turn to the top of Zion Mabet, why is a judge treated differently? Meaning, why not everybody else also say the same thing? Why? So presumably the implication is that if it goes into somebody else's hands, they would return it. So I'm Rabbi Hachikamar. No, Rabbi is saying this is what is intended to be said. We're talking about a situation where anybody, doesn't matter who, finds a document that had been in the hand of a judge. The Heiki dummy, what does that mean? The Kasabe henpek, that it has already been certified. So then lo yotziu olamid. Then it cannot go out at all. You can't return it to either party. The finder cannot return it to anyone. Because all right, below me by low kasabein henpek. And of course, if there is no certification, it can't be returned to anybody. To ikalamemar kasav lil vote below lava. Because maybe if it hasn't been certified, we have no idea that it was ever given by the borrower to the lender. Meaning, again, these are IOUs essentially. Essentially, they're like our modern day checks. And if I find a check on the street that's made out to Moshe, that I made, that, if somebody finds a check that I made out to Moshe, people don't know. Maybe I had written it to Moshe because I wanted to give him a gift, but then I chose not to. Or maybe I wrote it out in order to purchase something, but then I didn't purchase it. Or maybe I had already given it to him. So there's no way to know to whom the check should be given. So now, of course, in a modern day, it's a little different because checks can be, there's a record of whether the check, because of the back office associated with it, there's a record of whether the check was paid or not. And so that check should not be able to be paid a second time. And so you can probably just give it to the writer of the check is probably sufficient. All right, but in any event, here when we're dealing with somebody who may not have ever given the item, so of course we can't return it to either of the parties. The point is that even when there's a certification on the document, lo yakser, we can't return it because we're worried about it having been paid. Yossi Omer Harehu B'chezkaso. Rabbi Yossi says no, it doesn't. We don't. It's considered unpaid. The last thing we know about this document is that it was a valid document. And we're not worried about it being paid out. Whoa, below Chayish Rabbi Yossi pay rayon. You're telling me that Rabbi Yossi is not worried about it being paid? Tanya, listen to this brisa, and you'll see that Rabbi Yossi does worry about it, because if you find a tuba in the marketplace, bisman shabal modeh, when the owner admits that it is unpaid, yakser leisha, you should return it to the wife. Eina bal modeh, if the husband does not admit that it's been that he has not yet paid it, well then lo yakser lo lazeh, you can't return it to either. Rabbi Yossi says, oh, the tachas bala, if they're still married, meaning if she's still, living with him, so then yakser leisha, then you should go give it to the woman. This armula oniskarsha, if they're divorced or she's widowed, lo yakser lo lazeh, then you can't give it to either party because again, maybe it's been paid. So again, the point is that at the end of the day, Rabbi Yossi says that when she's widowed and divorced, we don't give it to either party because we're worried that the husband is paid for it. So how could he say that we're not concerned about it being about payment and that we say that it's valid? So Epoch switched the opinion of Rabbi Yossi and the rabbis in the first brisa. So in the first brisa, we said that if the document is found by a judge, neither party can take it away. So that's going to be Rabbi Yossi. And the Chachamim are going to say it keeps its status, that it remains valid. So nafal yad dayan lo yotzi olamit. So again, if it goes into the hands of a judge, meaning that it's been certified, so then no finder can, the principals can't retrieve it. Divrei Rabbi Yossi. The Chachamim omrim harehu b'chezkaso. And the Chachamim say, no, it stays in its current status. One second, but then the rabbis in that first brisa, will argue with the first opinion in the second brisa, where we said matzah stark suba b'shuk bisman shabal moda yakser leisha, but aina bal moda lo yakser lo lazeh lo lazeh. We said we don't return it to either party if the husband doesn't agree. And so as a result, we have an inconsistency. So we're going to now explain. We're going to offer uh, uh, so this is the first of three answers to explain how we can make Rabbi Yossi consistent. And now we're going to explain how if we switch the opinions, we can have the rabbis be consistent. Shtar ksuba kule Rabbi Yossi. Really, the second brisa that we quoted was all Rabbi Yossi. There was no Tanakama. The Chasuri Machsara, Bahachitana. And this is what was intended to be said. If the husband does not admit that he still owes the obligation, well, then as a result, you can't return it to either party. When are we talking about that we can't return it to either party? Shinis armala o shinis garsha. That's where they've been widowed or divorced. Of course, if the husband admits that he still owes it to her, then you can return it to the woman, even if she's been widowed or divorced. However, if she's still under her husband, if she's still with her husband, then even if he disagrees, we will return it to the wife. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Bala, Yachzer Leisha, Nisar Malon, Nisgarsha, Lo Yachzer, Lo Lezev, Lo Lezev. Because Rabbi Yossi is the one who says that if in fact she's connected to her husband, we return it to the wife. But if she's divorced, we then don't return it to either party. Again, assuming that the husband does not admit that he still owes the money. So that's answer number one. So,
so if he doesn't return it to either party, then is there an obligation to pay or not to pay? Who has the cheskat on the mama?
No obligation to pay anything. Right. There it's hamotzi mechavero olavaraya. So as a result, nobody ends up, the woman gets nothing extra. She's in a worse case than if she were actually holding the document and the two of them were holding the document and came to court. Okay, so yes, no, she would get nothing in that situation.
So it's as if the Baal still holds then it's as if the Baal, even though you don't give it back to him, it's as if he still holds the money, so to speak.
Exactly. As long as, until she can bring evidence, it's going to effectively be like you're returning it to the husband, even though we say don't return it to either one. Okay, so now Rav Papa gives a second answer, and he says, you know what? You don't need to switch the opinions. Rav Papa Amar Lolam Lo Tepuch. You don't need to switch the opinions between Rabbi Yossi and the Tanakama in the second case of the first brisa that we cited that talks about a document found by a judge. So the Tanakama says that neither party can take it away, and Rabbi Yossi says you get that it stays valid. So how, if that's true, what about the second brisa that where Rabbi Yossi says that if the wife is still connected to the husband, she gets it back, implying that if they're not connected, she doesn't get it back. So Rabbi Yossi l'divrayim derabanan ka'amar lahu. Rabbi Yossi was actually arguing within the rabbis, and he was saying the following: Lididi, according to me, afilunis armelonis garsha, even if they're widowed or divorced, nami lo chashin liparam, we never worry about it being paid back, and so as a result, you would give it to the wife anyway. Lididchu, but according to you, oduli mahat. But Oda Takas Bali, you should at least admit to me that if she is still in the connected with her husband, that for all intents and purposes they're still married, the Yachzer Leisha, you should return the Ketubah to the wife, the Lav Bas Bironi, because she's not yet somebody who should be paid the Ksuba. So why would we ever think, even if the husband's disagreeing and saying that he has paid it, why would we give that any credence? And the rabbi said to him, no, we think even in that situation, Amor Tsarare Aspasa, maybe he gave her specific bundles of valuables that she would be able to use to collect as essentially a deposit for the ksuba. And so as a result, he has effectively paid the ksuba. So Ravina Amar La'olam Epoch Kamaisa. Really, I'll tell you, as a third answer, you should switch Rabbi Yossi and the rabbis. The time of the Rabbanan Dahacha. And now, we have this inconsistency within the rabbis, because in the first brisa we say that it's a valid document, and in the second brisa where we say that we require the finder to keep the ksuba, in that situation, we're worried that there was a second ksuba, and so as a result, this ksuba, which was maybe was lost, and they wrote another one to replace it. And so as a result, if you give this ksuba back to the wife, maybe she'll be able to collect twice. For Rabbi Yossi, well, 1 second, if we're worried about two ksubot, why does Rabbi Yossi allow the finder to get the ksuba back? L'shtei ksubos lo chayash. He's not worried about two ksuba documents. Okay, so now we conclude with today with the following. So Amar Rabbi Lazar machlokas. Well, 1 second, and without Rashi here, this would be very complicated. So what do we mean by machlokas? So let's take a look at Rashi. It's 1, 2, 3. It's almost middle of the Rashi on the left-hand side of Zion and Bet, and it's about 20 lines down. Machlokas hayachloku, when the Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, when he said that you divide it, Demashma Cholkin B'Shava, where it seems to imply that you divide it equally, so that's the question. When we said machlokas, what does that mean? It's b'shishneim adukim b'tofis. We're talking about where two people are holding on to the tofis. The tofis is the extra part of the contract. The toref is the core elements of the contract. That's going to be the names of the parties, the amount of the loan, and very importantly, the date. Now, all of those parts, except for the date, are repeated in the tofes, but the date is not in the tofes. But the point is that they're both holding the same part of the contract. That's what Rabbi Elazar says. Ushne and B'Torah, or both of them are holding the Torah, the main part of the contract. The contract's names, parties, amount and date. And if we take a look at the next Rashi, Ushneim Adukim B'Torah, Kolomar Ushneim Adukim B'Torah, that or the both of them are holding on to the Torah. The there is an or, not an and. The Torah. And what is the Torah? Gilui shel shtar. That's the revealing part of the contract. Makom halova v'hamalva v'hamos v'hazman. It identifies the borrower, the lender, the amount of money, and the time. Tofis shar kol lashon hashtar. And the tofis is basically all the other terms that are associated with the contract. So what do we do in that situation? That's where we're going to split it, because they're both holding the same part of the contract. But if one person is holding the extra part and one person is holding the core part of the contract, zenotel tofis, the zenotel Torah. This one takes the tofis, the extra part, and this one takes the Torah. So what in the world does that mean? We'll have to explain that. The Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Rabbi Elazar and says, "La'olam yacholkin." Really, you divide it. So vafilu echad aduk b'tofis ve'echad aduk b'torah, and even where one is holding the main part and one is holding the extra part, is it really true that you don't just divide the whole thing? Tanya zen notal ad makom shiado magas. We have the rule that everyone gets as far as their hand reaches. So why would you think that? How can Rabbi Yochanan say that you split it? Excuse me, when in fact we say that you get what your hand reaches. So lo tzricha dekai toref bi mitzeh. No, when Rabbi Yochanan says you split it, it means where the toref is in the middle, so that there's some blank above. The Torah is usually the first part of the document, so there's blank space above the Torah. There's blank space below the Torah, and the two people and tofes rather. There's a blank space above the toref, and there's blank space below the tofes. And the point is that the two people are holding onto the edges. And Rashi explains, Dekai toref kim be mitzai, where the toref is in the middle. Umar Amarchada v'lo pligi. That really Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar are not arguing at all. They're completely consistent with one another. And Rabbi Yochanan is talking about a different situation. And so, well, in second, if he's talking about a different situation, why bother even telling us? Well, wouldn't I know, of course, that what Rabbi Yochanan is saying is true? Of course, we are going to divide it equally. So lo trika b'digmakarev legabi dechad, because no, we do need to teach this, because I might think that since the toref is closer to one of the people, my ma'odatema amrlei halog haki, I would say one of them is going to say, let's divide the contract across, so I get to keep the entire toref. Because the other one could say, no, you want to divide it that way, let's divide it vertically. And so as a result, I'll get half of each of the tofes and the toref. And so since both of those are legitimate claims, we're going to say that they're going to divide everything equally. So now
you were muted. And after you said the Kai Torah Metzia, you were muted for a few moments.
Okay, I don't know why I didn't mute myself, but so if again, so we're the answer to Rabbi Yochanan's apparent inconsistency with the fact that we're supposed to get as far as our hand reaches is the fact that we're talking about where it's in the middle, and we need to say that because maybe you might think that if one of them is holding the part closer to the toref, he would get the toref, even though he's not actually holding the toref itself. And we say, no, you have to split it. So now we go back and analyze Rabbi Lazar's statement. So Amrle Rav Acha Medifti Ravina, Rabbi Lazar. According to Rabbi Lazar, the Amr Zenotel Tofes, the Zenotel Toref, that one gets the Tofes and one gets the Toref. Lamalei, what's he going to do with it? Meaning, at the moment, we're just assuming we're going to rip the document, and one is going to get one part, and the other is going to get the other part. Now, the person who gets the toref would be able to collect the whole document because the toref has everything that you need in it. And even if you have just a toref, that's sufficient. So, is the person who gets the tofes just going to use it as a covering for his, as a bottle stopper? Amrle, lo, lidme. We're talking about where they split the value. To Amr Hachi. Shtara de Isbezman, and this is what we say. We take a look at the Torah and we say how much is a document worth with the date, meaning the Torah worth. Because when you have the date, you have the ability to collect from real property that has been sold by the borrower. So if I lend you money and the next day you sell property and I lent you money with a written document and the written document has today's date on it, and now tomorrow you sell the property, I can go, and you now no longer have money to pay me back. I can go to the purchaser of your property and collect from that property, and then he's gonna, you're gonna owe him the money instead of owing me the money. So we figure out how much is a contract that has the ability to collect from real property worth. Let's say that's worth 100. So kama shabe, how much is it worth? Udelays basement, and then if I don't actually have the time on it, all I have is that you owe me money. So now I don't have the ability to collect from people who buy land from you. So how much is that worth? So kama shabe. So we'll say that that's worth 80. So bishmara de isbezman gabi mishmade. So when you have a document, you can collect from real property that's been sold. V'idach lo gabi mishmade. Whereas the other person without the date can't collect from property that's been sold. So Yav lehech to beni beni. So whichever's holding the documents toref, he gets that difference in value. And then the rest and the rest gets divided. So let's give an example. So we have a monetary, I'm sorry, I didn't scroll here. So we have a monetary example on the screen now. So let's say the toref is worth 100, the tofes is worth 80. So if the creditor is holding the toref, so he gets 20, which is the difference in value, plus he gets half of the of the value of the rest of the contract, half of the tophes. So he would end up with 20 plus 40 or 60. On the other hand, if the creditor is holding the tophes, well, then the debtor who's holding the torep, he effectively gets to keep the 20, and then you split the tophes, split the value of the rest of the contract, and therefore the creditor would only get 40. So nami de amran lidmei, and similarly, when we said yachloku in Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's ruling, we're talking about money that you split value. Because if you don't say that we're splitting from a monetary perspective, when you have two people holding a talis in our Mishnah, you're going to tell me that they're going to cut the garment in two? It'll be worthless. You're going to damage it. So no, halokash. It doesn't. That's not a good proof that in fact we're going to split as we turn to Chedam Adal. The coat's good. You can split the garment and it'll be good for children. But 1 second, what about Rabba's statement? If you have gold in the garment, cholkin, they divide it. You're going to tell me we're going to split a garment that's got gold in it? You don't give a garment with gold in it to children. So as a result, it's going to be damaged. Again, halokasha, it's good for the children of kings, princes. So as a result, that's why we're going to be able to do it. So as a result, again, it's not a proof that you have to split it monetarily. Well, 1 second, what about the fact that our Mishnah said, if you got two people who are riding on an animal and everyone's saying that the animal is theirs, we say that they divide the animal. And and you're going to tell me that they're going to split it? What if they're going to do damage to it? Now, bishlam at the all right, fine. You want to tell me when it comes to a kosher animal, fine, you can split it and each one will get the meat that's 50% of the meat. Elatameya. But if you're telling me about a non-kosher animal, that totally ruins the animal. Clearly, the highest value of any animal that's not kosher is its working. So Elolidime must be that you're going to do the money. So Hakanami lidime. And so as a result, in the end, we say that we're going to split it according to value. And so we finally came to the proof. And now that we've done that, we'll end for today. And we'll, God willing, pick up tomorrow with Rami Bar Chama attempting to learn another lesson from our Mishnah. So to hear that lesson and to see how he derives it, stay tuned for tomorrow's daf.
Who would keep a garment then if you're splitting according to the money?
No, so you would sell it in the marketplace and then you split the amount, or you could have one of them, pay the other if they agree to such a relationship. But in the simplest case, you sell it in the marketplace, and then the Beis Din would help you sell it in the marketplace, and then you take the proceeds, and they're divided equally between the two parties. And that just makes everything easier. That's certainly the way, certainly the most efficient manner, and certainly preserves the value to the greatest extent.
So that would be the general rule. When from the beginning, we're talking about yaklochu, we're talking about deciding
the way
on the monetary value, and the garment goes elsewhere, the horse goes somewhere, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Correct. That in the end, because of the animal case, we end up saying, as I understand it, that in all of the cases, we will in fact divide things according to their value. And then we will not say that we're just going to split the item. Now, obviously, I think that's pretty clear. And basically, the threat that would ensure that everybody gets what they're entitled to is that if the parties disagree about how to handle it, then the Beis Din will just simply sell it and split the value.
All right.
All righty. Have a fabulous day. Tomorrow, looking forward to continuing our learning together.